we got a little spoiled. Ben Harris, that's on here, his dad is the one that gave us this microphone setup, and it's worked wonderfully for what we're using it. We're really happy to have it, and very thankful of Michael that he sent that our way. But if it's not working, it's probably not the fault of the machinery. It's probably the fault on our end here somehow. So is that line jumping, honey? Popping back and forth? Yeah. I don't know. It should just automatically plug in there. This is a great day. This is Dempsey. Dempsey's about our 12-ish warm blood. We got him from a friend of ours. What's that, honey?
They're saying much better and bingo. So
what does that mean?
I think that worked.
Okay. All right.
To turn off the DV boost.
Yep. All right. So you guys, every once in a while, just give Don a little feedback on how that sound is, especially if we're having any troubles. We sure appreciate it. Yeah, 12-ish, warm blood, probably Hanoverian. I think he's American made. I don't know if he's got the brand on him or not, but he's Hanoverian bred, jumper bred. Got him from a friend of ours. She had him for many years. He went through a whole bunch of barns, went through some illnesses, had a lot of opportunities to get a cross section of the horse world. He went through 6 barns in 6 years, and as far as I'm concerned, probably the only really good riding he got is when our little friend had him, because she did a real good job with him. Horses like this are projects. She couldn't fix it all. She got him to the spot where she thought he was rideable, and sent him along the way, and I think he wiped out in a couple of weeks. That probably has really more of a statement about 2 things, not so much about her riding, but about where he went. The folks who ride him didn't support him, and that might be part of what we'll talk about today. And the other part is I would call him strong-willed, this horse. He can be pretty pushy. He can be pretty rude. He wants to bite. He's not aggressive in the sense like he's trying to tear your arm off and beat you with it, but he'd give you a little love bite, keep you on your toes. Symptom-wise, what we're working with here is we're working a lot of, Poppy's going to bring you something there, honey. We're working with a lot of typical, what we'd call braces, and they start through his entire body. So you guys that have been around me know what I'm talking about. A brace is a resistance. It's the inability to physically or mentally give to pressure. And so we got some real world stuff going on here with Poppy. She's got herself a little toy. We'll see how that goes. And so we'll, sweetheart, would you gather her up, please? And Karen, she's just had what we call a brain boil there. She's just got a little more energy than she's got patience. So anyhow, he exhibits braces through his entire body. The list of things that are going really well on him is pretty short. He's not soft. He's not forward. He's not straight. And so we're taking him as a project horse. And so our idea is a lot of times when contemporaries of mine do videos, they do some amazing videos because they show you about what it can be and how their horses are when things are going well. This is a chance to kind of video him for, I consider him a year-long project, at a minimum, to get him to where we kind of get a good spot where he could be a little bit more soft and content and trustworthy. So he's our project. When I'm home, I'll be working him. When I'm on the road, Donna may get some riding on him, and he may end up sitting around. So it may take us a while to get this all done, but he's a project and a chance to kind of document what we're doing. And the reason I think it's important is this horse is really common in the industry, and that is talented. He's very capable. He's got a lot of skill, but he's also not one that sort of is going to just blend in and do whatever you want him to do. It's not that he challenges you, but he's sensitive, and he wants to make sure that you're really doing this. So I think what's happened on him is they got a foundation started on him, and then every time they just about got him functional, they overfaced him either a competition or with jumps. And he felt betrayed and sort of let down. And so when he gets that way, he gets pushy and rude, and he'll kind of jump sideways a little bit, spook. He's always kind of looking for trouble. So you guys that know me will know I'm going to be really particular about the shape of his body. The shape of his body will dictate to some degree how relaxed his mind is. Let me go the other way. If I let his body get out of shape when I'm riding, out of balance, that's a surefire way to get him in trouble. So we're going to be working on that quite a bit today. Just a little more detail on him. Large right hand brace, as if he'd had a left-handed rider riding him most of his career. He also has the classic right-handed person's brace, which comes out in the left hind. So both sides are pretty braced up and sticky. So at this stage, I've been doing some lead bys on the ground, freeing up his hind, freeing up his front. When I get on and ride, the rides have been fairly short and fairly superficial in terms of what we're doing. Untrack the hindquarters, some one rein stops, take his head around, rock back with the two reins and a soft feel, and move his front quarters a little bit. Transitions. That's kind of been what we're doing. So the rides haven't been real high level or sophisticated. We're looking at just putting some quality in there and get it to where maybe some softness would start to carry. So symptomatically, it's not unusual for him to pick up a soft feel when you go to halt. He might push into the bridle 50, 60, 70, 80 pounds. So anybody that knows me knows that I'm not going to tell you the answer is to put more pressure on him. The answer is to try to get to his feet and get him soft. So that's kind of an overview on him. He's going to be a project. We look at having some fun with him. And that he's fairly typical in the industry. So many of these horses come in and everybody has high hopes, but they can't find their way through a program because they can't fill in enough for the human, for the weak spots on the human. So they go out the side door and nobody talks about them. So we're thankful for our friend Katrina that sent him our way. And, we're going to do our best to do right by him and do right by the good work that she got started. We're proud of what she's done. And we're going to try and continue on that good work. So, okay, what do we got going on, sweetheart?
We got Helen Jones, who's just very interested in watching what you do with this horse.
Yep.
To work through the braces and the spooking.
Okay.
And then Tammy White wants you to jump right in, lateral flexion, keeping the ears level and the jaw tucked.
All right, good. Nothing like a challenge from Tammy. And then Helen said, what are we going to do? So I'll talk about the entire program, Helen, kind of from start to finish. I'll try to keep the details oriented, but you guys can feel free to ask any clarifying questions as we're going along. Tammy White's talking about head and neck position and a lateral bend. So I'll bend down here and I'll ask him to take his head around. I'd like his ears to stay level and his head to stay fairly soft like that. That's actually a little bit above average, Tammy, for there. There's been some times when he's been pretty sticky to take his head around. There he's moving his feet rather than bend. We'll just wait this out here. And the reason Tammy started there, I know her well enough to know her program, that she knows if you're going to have a horse exhibit anything, the most simple thing you could do is just take a lateral bend. Because if horses are exhibiting braces, as you just saw on the left rein there, it's going to show up. And it'll show up in moving his feet, or he won't bend his neck right. Or what she was talking about, they'll often not have their ears level. So rather than take their head around, they tip their head down. And when they do that, Tammy and I've talked extensively about this over the last 30 years, about how that's a brace on these hind quarters or up through the front end, or a brace in the spine. So as goes their head and neck, it's a pretty good indication of how everything else is going. Just like you would indicate, I'm going to take a little trip here and try to just get a little out of camera range. And I want you guys to watch. It doesn't really matter which way I'm going. That's not a very substantial walk. That's not a very substantial walk. And so one of the things you would look at is how a horse takes his head around, but also look at this walk right here. The walk grip, the mind and the body being in balance. A year from now, I want that walk to look completely different. And so So that's another good indicator. If I was going to have someone show me, if I can only say one thing, they say, okay, Greg, you're going to set one thing up to test horses and see how broke they are and see if they're soft and if they're full of braces. I'd probably have somebody open and close a gate. It shows just about everything you need to do, but you could do it like Tammy talks about the head and neck. That's much better. When his head comes around, you want his neck to feel like it's a really well-oiled gate hinge. That was the ideal position. So that's not too bad. It's been a lot worse than that, Tammy. Maybe been a bit better, but certainly never been to a point that's been great.
Tammy says 30 years because we met in grade school.
Grade school was the best 16 years of my life, Tammy.
Sanaya would like to know how should the walk look?
Okay, man, Sanaya, that is a great question. So, Sanaya wants to know, she asked, how should the walk look? And so there would be some words that I would talk about. The first thing I would say is I'd want my walk big and swingy. And that's a sort of a way of saying when horses are really relaxed through their body, when the joints are turned loose, when their mind is relaxed, their back has a particular swing to it when they're walking. And you'll see their head will have a particular swing to it when they're walking as well. So you could just watch a horse walk and see whether they're turning loose or not. So a couple of the symptoms that I would talk about is whether I'm getting a lateral swing in their head and neck through that neck to that jaw. The other thing, and we've talked about this at some length with you, Sanaya, and many others, is I monitor his overtrack, which is how far his hind foot is stepping into his front foot track. So with this horse, here's his front foot, here's his hind foot coming up. Right now, he's stepping into his hind foot track, of which I would classify in Greg's scale as a 0, meaning the heel of his front foot and the heel of his hind foot, it almost looks like one track because he's stepping right into the track. You want to see that? Okay. I'll do a walk by here and you can maybe let's, I'm just going to do a walk by and then you can watch his feet. See if this looks like about a good distance. All right. So watch his left hind stepping up. That might be even short of his left front. That's a pretty hideous walk. I'm going to come by again, Sanaya, and make another walk here. And sure. And notice there's no particular big swing of his head and neck. He's bobbing there a little bit. But I'm hoping that in a year from now, I can walk him out and we're going to have a really nice comparison video of a poor walk that indicates braces and a good walk. But that's one of the reasons that the dressage scores in a dressage test, the walk, they multiply it times 2, is because it represents all the other gaits being in balance. So swingy through the back, big overtrack. I want to see his head and neck swinging. You'll hear me, Sanaya, I've referred to this before. You heard me talk about them in an elephant walk. They're really swinging that head and neck.
Joe Kelly wants to know, are you shifting your weight on the move at all?
No, Joe, I'm not shifting my weight on the move at all. I'm just going with him. There would be an exception to that. Let me just come through here towards the camera, Joe, and I'm going to do a one-rein stop. Now, see there, I got to push him out. I don't have hardly any life to work with there at all. When I do a one-rein stop, Joe, on my right rein, I'm going to slide down, and you'll see me tip my weight just slightly out over his left shoulder. That's going to unweight his right hind. There's my step, and I'm done. You might see me shift out just a tiny bit to help unweight this foot. So basically, I'm going to try to put my weight where it most likely helps the outcome of the event that I'm asking. So I don't want to exaggerate it. I want to be balanced. Okay? Hope that made some sense, Joe.
Tammy again.
Yeah. Tell Tammy there's a 3-question limit, so make it good.
No.
Oh, okay. So there's not.
How does that number refer to the whole body?
Okay, the overtrack number, I think she's talking about, every horse has a limit of how far they can overtrack based on their conformation. And so there's a maximum number that they can overtrack based on their conformation. So when they start to get relaxed and to that state of what we call turning loose, When they're turning loose, their joints are free. They're moving free. There's no tension in their body. They're carrying no tonic tension in their body. That's going to allow the horse, if he's straight, to get to the maximum overtrack that his conformation will allow. Some horses I've ridden, their maximum overtrack would be a -6. Okay, they're not real handy from behind. They don't really reach up. And some horses, I got a friend in North Carolina that sponsors my clinic, Susan Hopkins, and she rides really nice horses, rides them really well. And you'll commonly see her warm bloods tracking 16, 18 inches plus 18 inches overtrack. So it's 16 inches beyond the foot. So it's something that I watch in particular. I don't hear too many people talk about it, but I got onto it when I was showing horses, when I was showing warm bloods for the Europeans, when I was showing the in-hand horses overtrack on a baby when they're putting when you're showing a baby at a curring. Overtrack is one of the things they put a fair bit of emphasis on because they believe overtrack correlates to collection. So you're probably, if I was out buying a horse, I would never buy a horse that had a -4 natural overtrack. I'm going to want a horse that has a bigger one, +6, +8, because they're going to be coming from behind more. Those horses are going to move from behind better. So it indicates tension and it indicates freedom, but it also is within the mobility of that particular conformation. Yeah. Yeah. So anytime they're overtracking towards their maximum, they're moving their body in balance and they're minimizing the wear and tear on their joints. Anytime they're not overtracking, well, like this, there's accelerated wear and tear on the joints. Period. That's all there is to it. So the last few years, I've been saying this a lot to you guys. You're either riding your horses balanced into soundness or unbalanced into unsoundness, period. And I'm going to stick by it. Those are observations I made, and I'm going to stick with them. So we're going to be looking. I'll be moving these horses' feet here a little bit. We'll be doing some one-range stops and just checking him out, and we'll be talking about the feet. I think, wasn't it Tammy the other day that saw the little short video that was commenting on the outside hind foot? Was that Tammy that said that? Yeah, it was one of our good friends with a good eye. So, okay, looks like we got another question.
Amy Howard.
Yeah, hey Amy.
She said, "Are there any telltale signs that you look for with races that might flag a lameness, soreness versus tension and mental?"
Yeah, that's a great question. So here's my deal: if I work on the feet 3 or 4 days and I don't get any improvement at all, I'm going to call the vet, because I've probably got a secondary problem brewing, or the physical problem is setting up the lack of movement or the lack of balance. In 3 or 4 days, I should start to see a positive change in the movement of the horse if he's not being held up physically.
Just reiterate, that was a question on physical problem versus just mental.
Okay, so yeah. Okay. So I'll try to do a better job repeating those questions. But we were just talking about something that might physically allow the horse to move poorly, that is more like an injury or a lack of movement or ability, arthritis, things like that, versus the lack of movement that is simply because they're not in balance or they're resistant. So you can certainly have the imbalances. You can have a bad hawk and they're not going to move very well. But you can also have a good hawk and then move poorly because they're not moving in balance. So.
Okay, Helen Jones.
Yep.
With lateral flexion, my horse tends to lower his pole below the withers. How does one help lift the neck?
Great question. How does one, when you're doing a lateral flexion and they put their pole too low, how do they do it? Generally speaking, Helen, I'm going to tell you probably need to get that horse sharper off your legs. So when I take this horse's head around to the right, I'm going to roll my right leg on. There's 3 or 4 ounces. Now I'm 3 or 4 pounds. Now I'm bumping 5 or 10. There, I finally got to the feet. So it took a 6 or 8 pound bump off my leg to get that foot moving, get that hindquarter started over at all. that would be a horse that would exhibit poor movement in the neck. So I know this sounds like you're working on the wrong end, but I'm going to get the hindquarters freed up more, and generally speaking, the neck starts to take care of itself. Make sure you're not rewarding the neck going down at your release. So the other thing is where you're releasing. Hope that does it for you, Helm. Hey, Laura. Yep, Betsy. Yep.
It says, in a previous video, you mentioned the position of the pole. What can you do if your horse holds their head too low and the pole is too angled?
Okay. So Betsy's referring to a video we did this week. We're talking about this horse in particular. When he backs up, he was putting his head and neck down. His pole was lower than his withers, and he was behind the vertical. So, first of all, don't reward it. If he's in a bad spot, don't reward it. Second of all, the better my horse can step to the right, the better my horse can step to the left, the more likely my horse is going to be able to back correctly. But you'll see, and you go back and watch that video, a good friend of mine picked this up, and it was a great eye. But you're going to see at that point, there was a point where my right hand was coming up more than my left hand. I was addressing him, putting his neck down. This horse has been pulled on hundreds and thousands of times hard here, having no functional movement of the feet. So picking up on two reins is an invitation for him to pull on me. So sometimes, in order to get something you've never had, you have to give something you've never given. That's one of those favorite legacy sayings of ours. So there's times when you'll see me split my hands a little bit, and I'll help that change a little bit of a bit angle difference there. And that was a search. And that's what I need to get the search turned on. So, in summary, free up the hind, free up the front, and then don't reward the bad behavior. If they're really stuck, double the softness on the ground in the halter. Then come back to your snaffle bet. And then, Betsy, I think you and I, and sometimes I get my students and my horses mixed up, but I think you've been there watching before when we've talked about riding a horse in a neck rope for a breakthrough, just with the rope around their neck, just leave the bridle on them. I'll use that as a breakthrough on the horse that's been pulled on a lot. We haven't addressed that at all. I'm sure we'll get a chance to address that on him at some point. Okay, what else we got going on? Joe.
With a horse like him that can be reactive,
Yes.
what is the best way to hold the reins so you have control of these spooks but not too much tension to cause a negative reaction?
Man, that's a great question. Where is the best place to hold the reins where you can have control of your horse, yet not so much tension? Because Joe knows if I ride with too much tension, I'm causing my horse to get worried. So there's a sweet spot in the reins, Joe, and I can't tell you where it is, but I can tell you it involves a couple of things. One is, ideally, I want a straight line from my elbow to my wrist to their mouth. I want that line to be straight. I don't want to be above the line, with the exception of what we just talked about, and I don't want to be below the line. There are exceptions to all these rules. But the other thing I want you to notice, Joe, I'm going to get straight on here to the line. Notice my right rein. I'll get this guy set up just right. There's a straight line from the mouth through the rein to my thumb to my elbow. I don't have my hands going out and back to my elbows. And I don't have my hands coming in and out to my elbows. The line isn't coming in and then back out. So on a horse that's bracy, you want these two triangles, this line and the lateral, the line from the side, to be ideal, because that's the most efficient shape. I always tell everybody at this point, if you look up, you're riding in your indoor barn, you look up in the rafters, it's full of triangles. And the reason is triangles are strong. So this is two triangles, which gives me the maximum presence with the minimal pull, if that makes sense. I want to get as much as I can without pulling him. There's exceptions to that, Joe. You might see my hands come up some on this horse because I'm picking his neck up at times too. So it kind of comes back to that other legacy saying, or one of the many that we have, and that's observe, remember, and compare. Watch how he's going. See where your hands are and see how he responds to that. The reason I found this right here is I was riding lots of really braced up, hard horses like this, and you couldn't pull on them hard enough to get them motivated. And I didn't like pulling on those horses. I never liked pulling on them. But I thought, what can I do different? And I did this, and I'll be darned if I didn't get to the feet. And I went, I'm going to remember that. And I've been using that for 30 years. So, great questions, you guys. These are great questions.
So we'd like to see an example of a horse that's relaxed, turned loose, and driving from behind.
Tell Tammy I'll send her a video because it's definitely not this one. However, I can do the opposite. I can show you everything you don't want. Yeah, she said, give me an example of a horse that's relaxed, turned loose, driving from behind. And that, so Tammy, I don't know how this is going to, in seriousness, I don't know how he's going to turn out. How bad are the braces? Is he able to forgive to the point where he can look for some softness again? You know what I'd really like to do? My fantasy would be in a year is put this horse in the hackamore. But this horse has spent so much time being yanked on with a chain over his nose. I don't know if he's ever going to be even close to forgiving enough to allow me to pull an ounce on the hackamore and have it have some meaning. So I don't know where he's going to take us, but let's check back in a year and see if we can get some better videos of this guy moving well. So when he's getting focused out there, and you guys are students of mine, know there's also a little part of him that has trouble switching eyes. Stuff behind him can bother him. So if he kind of gets to looking off, excuse me, you'll see me take my left leg back and draw his mind back. Sometimes I can get to his mind without having to pick up on the reins. Right. Now I did have her calm the dog down because that was just starting to ramp up. I know where this pup can go from there. So I did want to keep it under Mach 1. But yeah, I don't hide from anything. I mean, if we're going to have trouble, today's it, because it's cold, it's frosty, it's windy. We were just laughing yesterday about the joke about my friend saying that when you're in Mojave, California, and the wind stops blowing, the horses all get nervous. So this is a great day to have some stuff come up, some bad stuff come up. So I'm pretty happy with this guy so far. I did a real quick warm up in him. I did some transitions in the round pen because he's pretty full of himself. A couple of lead bys, and I jumped on, and I was sitting on him for about 5 minutes before we turned this on. And I think I made one lap in here or something. So he hadn't had much warm up. Hi, Karen Zim. There's our girl.
General question. It's about how to balance horsemanship in the competition world.
Balance horsemanship in the competition world. Yeah. So there's guys that are better qualified to answer that than I have. I mean, you want to go talk to Nick Dowers and ask him that same question because he's won everything you can win and done it well. But here's my theory on it. The stronger the foundation, the more they can handle adversity. So if you're going to go to the show pen and put a lot of pressure on your horse, it happens. But if your foundation is really solid, your horse will bounce back and they won't fall apart. So build your foundation, over prepare your horse. And you want to talk about the triangle? Is that what you're talking about? The triangle of our foundation? So I teach from the 3 pieces, a triangle of three lines. The baseline is always supple. When I go get my suppleness going, and that's getting all the spine moving, all the joints moving, removing those resistances. The next line is straightness, the ability to get a horse forward and energetic. And if I have supple and I have straightness, then I can add impulsion to that. I get supple, straight, and impulsion. I got a horse that's going to start coming up through the levels. And the only exceptions I've ever seen to that are horses that are physically impaired somehow, horses that have an injury. You'll see horses that get heavy like this guy does in the pole, but maybe they got a lot of arthritis. So, yeah, great questions, man. These are great questions. Got another one. Tracy. Hi, Trace.
Do you find a difference between the softness you get with yielding to one rein in the neck bend versus rolling your toe to get his inside eye?
No. I find them exactly the same when they're good. So the same softness when you're bending them off a rein and taking their head around and they're really turning loose, When you're rolling your toe, now that makes it, he made it look like I just did that. I just got lucky there. I was rolling my toe and he just happened to be looking left. But they feel exactly the same to me. It's the amount of degree and energy, but the softness is exactly the same. Great question. Some of these questions, you guys, come from a lot of experience. These are cool. These are cool questions.
So Carrie Delavoy,
Mm-hmm.
you answered.
Yeah. Hi, Carrie. Glad to have you here. Welcome to our family.
She said, I'm just getting Argo to walk in a circle. How do I move him up to a trot without him exploding?
Okay, Carrie, take a deep seat, grab your pencil. Okay. I'm going to show you, I'm going to give you a lesson here that's really important. I'm going to take this horse around and we're going to talk about a horse being in balance, or you'll often hear me talk about a horse being straight. In Greg's world, it's possible for a horse to be straight on an arc. So you got to kind of learn how to translate Greg into English here a little bit. But what you don't want to have happen, and I'm going to purposely do this, coming left, I'm going to purposely counterbend him left, looking right. Now see there, he's dropping his left shoulder and dropping his left rib. That's the greatest invitation I've ever found to getting a horse explosive. Okay. And the reason is they feel very defensive in that position because they can't save himself. So I'm going to come around. I'm going to purposely really counterbend this guy again. Now, Carrie, here's the key. I'm going to take my left seat and my left leg, and I'm going to step his left hind up and in. There, and I just put him on the clean line. You'll hear me over time refer to this good line, this perfect line, as being on the railroad tracks. So let me just do a quick connect the dots. And don't let this overwhelm you, Carrie. You're just barely learning how to translate Greg into English. So that's kind of a lifelong journey, okay? So don't let this overwhelm you. But the better I can put my left leg on and step his hips right, and the better I can put my right leg on and step his hips left, I have control of the hips laterally. The more I can do that, the more I'm capable of stepping his inside hind up. Now I'm going to try something. I don't know if this is going to work, but I'm going to go right down to Donna, and I'm going to ride away from the camera, and I'm going to counterbend him, and I'm going to step his hind quarter up to see if you can see this. Now watch his, let me see which foot. Okay, watch his right hind. He's wanting to bulge here to the right. Okay, now I'm going to step his right hind up. Right there. He just stepped up onto the railroad tracks. Okay, that is what I need prior to my transition. So I need my horse turning loose, having no braces in the front feet, having no braces in the hind feet, and have the ability to essentially move his ribs. So now I can create enough straightness where I can get him to go forward without being highly defensive. So it's a stair-step approach. This is basically riding and horsemanship is an upside-down triangle. The very thing you learn first, you're going to build on for the rest of their life. When you get up here into these levels, like up into this that you can only imagine being their level, it still has a root back to that very first thing you did. And that might be this right here. Just step his hips over. I'll take my right leg, step his hip over. That's actually the best he's ever done. I'm having to help just a tiny bit with the reins, but that's certainly above average for Dempsey. Way above average. So again, there's a lot of information. That's about 30 years of teaching right there, carrying a few sentences. So don't let that overwhelm you. The idea is an important thing, and that is I don't care whether you got 1,000 horses under your belt or your first horse and you're just learning this stuff. You're very capable of feeling this and understanding this. It just has to be presented in a way that makes sense to your brain. But that's kind of that, and your horse, yeah. But if I can get you to understand it, I can get you to get your horse to understand it. But your horse won't do it if you don't. Hence why we do clinics. The learning curve's pretty steep on those. So that was a great question. And again, just a word of caution, don't let that bury you in terms of detail. There's a lot there. Okay? Hi, Skylar.
Is this the same principle for getting a sluggish horse to trot?
It certainly is. So Skylar, the best demonstration, and I don't know when you're little if you ever did this when we were at the ranch, but you'll see me take a lead rope. I'm sorry, honey. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Skylar said, is this the same thing you do to get a sluggish horse to go? And the answer is absolutely. You cannot get a sluggish horse forward unless they're straight. And so when we were little, I don't know if you ever remember me doing this, but I'd take a lead rope and lay it down in the dirt of the arena, and I'd line the fibers up. And if you line the fibers of a lead rope up, you could push it through the dirt. Okay? As soon as the fibers come in line, the rope kinks and all the energy goes out the side. It's exactly the same with their body. So if I want my horse forward, I have got to get them straight first. As Carrie was saying, that'll help keep them from getting defensive. It'll also help them find a place to get forward without being either defensive or resentful. Sometimes you get those ones that are a little dull or pretty resentful about going forward. So absolutely, the straightness, supple, straight, and impulsion. Those are my three base things you got to work from. No matter what you're doing, I don't care how you dress or what you do with your horse. Trail ride, play polo, or rope cow, or do dressage. They all need that same base. Great question.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
She said, when is the right time to start a horse in a hackamore?
The right time to start a horse in a hackamore. It kind of depends on what you're doing with your horse. So if your horse has a job and you have a lot to do with your horse, sometimes you can start earlier with a hackamore. There's guys that start their horses in hackamores. I'm a snaffle bit to hackamore guy up into the bridle. So as a good rule of thumb, I would put the horse in the hackamore when my foundation is pretty solid. If there's any big holes in the foundation, I'm not going to move to the hackamore because it's probably not going to get any better in hackamore. So get your foundation solid before you put your horse in the hackamore. Most people under-prepare rather than over-prepare. Is that what I told you on Randy? Yeah, so and Donna's horse is different because he's an off-the-track thoroughbred. And our good friend PJ Murphy, he was doing his teeth last year, and he said, feel those bars in his mouth. And when you put your finger in there, the bars of his mouth have been crushed, literally crushed by the bit. And PJ was he's kind of amazed that those horses let us put a bit in their mouth at all after that. And after he pointed it out, it's kind of so am I. So Donna had to put her horse, her thoroughbred, off-the-track thoroughbred, in the hackamore. I would say his foundation wasn't quite complete, but it was a trade-off between that and a lot of history, a lot of bad history with the snaffle bit. The ring bits and tying their tongues down and all that stuff does a lot of damage to their mouth. I also had a horse many years ago, a stud that came from Mexico, a Lusitano stud, a bullfighting stud, and they'd cut half his tongue off with what they call a razor bit, which that's all we need to hear. Don't need to hear any more than that. And that was a horse. I rode him a month, and I was getting ready to put him in the hackamore. He wasn't really, he's a bullfighting horse. I had videos of him fighting bulls in Mexico City, but he certainly wasn't broke. But there's a place where I made an exception to that rule. His foundation could have been stronger. So there's generally, have your horses prepared, have them over-prepared to go to the hackamore. And there's some rare exceptions. And I kind of hesitate to even bring these up because people are always looking for an excuse to put them in the hackamore. Most of the time, you guys, when they're having trouble with a bit in their mouth, it's because their feet aren't freed up. One of the first things I want to know when my horses get worried is their mouth is going to get busy. And that's why I don't really like figure 8 nose bands and tying their mouth shut, crank nose bands, all those things, because they take away your ability to assess that part of their horse, among many other things. When they're starting to get worried, their mouths get big, I want to be the first one to know. So people are like, well, I got to put him in the hackamore because he doesn't like this bit. Well, it's not that he doesn't like the bit. He doesn't know what to do with his feet in the presence of the bit. You're not getting the bit to come out, the feel to come out through his feet. So people use it as an excuse too early. So do your homework, be thorough, and there's rare exceptions. I'm going to say, and Laura, she's seen a lot of horses too. I see 1 or 2 horses a year that would fit that category. That's it. That exception to bypass those early stages. Damage to the mouth, something like that. Yep, what's our next one?
Joe, she'd like to know if there are good warm-up exercises
Yes.
Excited at the start of the ride.
Yes. Yeah, good question. What do you do with a horse that's hot and they're pretty excited at the part of the ride? Well, the first thing I'm going to do, and I did that on this horse today, I got on, I walked a few strides, I slid down my rein, I put my left leg on, I got the hindquarters to step across like that. There's my left hind on tracking. And when he gives, I release. So I'm going to establish, control the feet with a one rein stop. Okay. It's a lateral move. I'm going to get the right hind to step through. Now that's a real poor step. I'm going to come back again. Are you guys able to see that? Am I standing in the camera enough? Okay. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that right hind again. That was pretty poor. Slide down. My right leg goes on. I'm waiting for that right hind to step through. There comes my step. There it is. My leg is released. I start with my one rein stops, Joe. That's a great way to kind of make sure you establish control and you have the ability, if things peak, like if the dog takes a run through the ring chasing a piece of aluminum foil, you can shut them down. Then if I have a horse that's just moving out and they're pretty tight, I'm going to come out here and I'm going to walk back towards the camera. And you're going to see me move the ribs. This is a good way to dial a horse in that's a little tight. And you're going to see me move the ribs to the left and to the right and to the left. There's my release. To the right, to the left, to the right. All the time I'm looking for a little soft feel there, right there in my hands. That's another really good exercise, kind of moving those ribs to get a horse dialed in. Give them something to do and something to think about. When horses are tight, they need a success. Yeah. So I definitely would start on the ground. Joe, you've done this with me before. Make sure you're doing that lead by getting those hind quarters moving and getting those front quarters moving. Then I get those quarters balanced, and then I'll get in the saddle, and that sort of establishes my one rein stop too. Yep. Yes, ma'am.
Can you show and explain getting the inside step under and getting them soft? Also, what's a good step, an okay step, and a bad step?
Yeah. What's the correlation between the way they're stepping and getting soft in their hands? I probably need today and then another 13 years to get this across to everybody, because this is kind of pulling all the pieces together. But having control of the hind quarters and being able to start to place those feet has a lot of correlation to how they'll give in the reins. So when I see a horse that's heavy in the reins, not correct in the neck and the poll, what people would say, when I grew up, we called them hard-mouthed horses. It had nothing to do with their mouth. It was just had somebody like me riding them. But what I didn't understand is it had nothing to do with the mouth. It had to do with the body being prepared. So I'm going to come across here in front of you guys. I don't know if we can even do this, but let me give it a try. I'm going to let him bulge towards the camera here, Shania. Okay. Now I'm going to step his left hind up with my left seat there. Now he can get soft in my hands. Now this is a place there. This is a place that Dempsey, I don't know. I've probably picked up 25 soft feels on him moving. Very few. Now I'm going to step his right hind up with my right seat and leg there. Now he's got the chance of getting soft there in my hands, and I catch that. So for today's sake, let's just say there's a connection, a correlation between how they move their feet and how soft they get in your hands. I'm going to stop him there. We'll get a little softness here. There's my little give. I'm going to get a little better one than that there. I like that a little better. That's kind of what we go over. What I've been working on with you for the last few years, Sanaya, is first of all understanding how to get your horse straight, and then how to start to activate those feet, and then how it comes out in your hands. So now some of you guys have heard me talk about this. This might be new to some of you guys, But one of the things I like to do as a stage check, and I'd like to be able to do this in a couple of months with this horse if I could, is ride him along on the slack rein and get him to step his inside hind up with my seat. I'll use my seat more than my leg when they're at this stage. And if you can get the inside hind to step up, even though you're not making any rein contact, you'll start to see your horse roll into a soft feel. That's riding them from the hind to the front, like the old dressage books talk about. And there's a whole lot to that and a whole lot that's correct about that, riding the horse from the hind to the front. So the other part of that, I tell you, Sanaya, is just keep coming back and riding with me, and we'll keep working on that because you'll get it. It just is you got to put the pieces together. But for today, know there's a connection between how they move their hind feet and how soft they are in your hands. Yeah. Yeah. That's why so we've been filming pretty much every day on this horse, and it's almost like Bill Murray and Groundhog Day. Come out and say, well, we got most of the mud knocked off him today, which we did. Some days we get more than others. And now I'm going to check the hindquarters out and check the front quarters out every day. I'm doing it for a couple of reasons. One is I want to make sure I survive. And number two, I want to make sure I've given him every chance he can get to progress. So it's really important that I stay attentive to the detail, and I want to see a general trend line. Yesterday was the first time. So we started kind of riding him here a couple of weeks ago. And yesterday was the first time he actually started to get a little bit soft to my left leg, moving his ribs over off my left leg. That was the first time. And up until that point, it's always been on the low side of good. So, okay. Okay, we're running a little. You guys can't imagine me running long on time. Peter Jones. Yep. Mm-hmm.
As soon as I ask him to move forward, he's a little slow to move. I believe I need to get bigger with him, or is it me?
Yes. He says, I'm riding in the horse in the halter. He's getting a little bit dull. Peter says he thinks he needs to get bigger and more effective with the horse, or is it him? And the answer is yes to both. So what happens is you have to understand the timing on the transition. And people who ride with me, we work a lot on transitions forward. And the reason is once you understand the timing, the transitions get really easy. But getting the timing, you might as well, if you're off a fraction of a second, you might as well be 100 miles off. But the straighter the horse is prior to the transition, the more forgiving they are if your timing is off. So it's really important that you get control of your horse laterally behind so you can get your horse straight and forward. And when you get your horse straight and forward, you're building in a sense of the ability to move up and accomplish higher levels, getting more done with less, but you're also building in the ability to tolerate a mistake or an adversity. And I'll just tell a real quick story. I'm going to tell myself, because my good friend I rode with for many years, and boy, he did a lot to keep me alive in spite of myself. And kind of what he would tell me, see, now, Greg, when you're getting ready to move those horses out, make sure you get them straight before you move them out. And I was at my folks' horse there in the Big Hole in Montana, and I was riding one summer, and I had this young green horse there, and she was real barn sour. So I thought, well, I'm just going to work on this today. So every time she kind of came by the barn, I got her a little bit busy. And one time, just as we were going by the barn, I came in to get her to go. But what I didn't realize in my lack of awareness is she was looking, top view, she was looking at the barn. So I had a big bulge in the rib. So when I bumped her, I asked her to go, but she wasn't in a position where she could go. She was like this. She wasn't like this. And the result was I had enough time as I was flying through the air. Before I hit the ground, I actually was able to process what I had done wrong. That I had asked that horse to go when they weren't straight, and it brought up the defense. She bucked because I made her buck because I asked at the perfectly wrong time. The good news is flying through the air, by the time I hit the ground, I'd actually learned something, and I've been building on that point. And Peter, one of these days, I'm hoping to get my horses straight. So that's a lifelong process. That's a lifelong process, okay? Oh yeah, we got the remote stuff. I'm home for another month. I'll have a little bit of time this spring, and I'll have some time when I'm on the road where you won't hear from me so much. But in these off times, Donna's got it set up where we can work on these lessons. We got them set up in 30-minute increments, and I can watch you ride. We've been working. Julie's on. I've been working with her. Been working with some other folks, and yeah, we got a partnership with the Pivo company, and there's a discount. Thank you, Donna. There's a discount if you don't have a Pivo and you want to do it. They're a pretty interesting tool. They're not that expensive, and they seem to be working really well if you have a good Wi-Fi or a decent cell signal. I can see plenty in my computer screen to be of help to you, especially if you have a little bit of a background, and we have a start on some things. I was working with a good friend of mine, Jan, yesterday, and Jan's been learning how to translate Greg into English for 20 years or so. And so she knows kind of what I mean by my terminology. So she's doing really well. It's allowing us to really break it down in pieces too, because it's making us pick 2 or 3 things every 30 minutes to work on, and then homework. And it's working really well. I'm pleasantly surprised. I'm kind of late to the technology train. I'm a bit of a Luddite anyhow. But I was a bit reluctant to do this too, because I wasn't sure whether I could really give you guys the value, but it's working. It's really neat. It's really fun. It gives us access and time to people like this time of year. It's really nice to kind of keep your brain sharp, because here in a couple months, we're all going to be cracked out and really getting busy. So, guys, I really appreciate you guys hanging with us. You guys are a lot of our close friends over the years, from all different parts of the country, and just want you to know how much you all mean to us. We're all in this together, and we're thankful that you're along the ride with us. So with a great sense of gratitude and appreciation for you guys and what you've all done through us over the years, each of you have done something unique and special for us. We're thankful for that. I think we'll just sign off for the day. Think about this, you guys, and let's maybe talk about doing another one sometime, and you guys can give us some ideas. Just like a clinic, I want to do the next one better. So we didn't do a whole lot of riding on this one, did a lot of talking, and that's exactly the opposite of what I thought we were going to do. But let's see how we can do it better next time, or what suggestions you guys come up with some great stuff for. So thank you. And okay, Donna, sending it out on the email list. You get that from GregEliel.com website. That's the Horses, Leadership, and Life website. Sign up, and she'll ping stuff out to you once in a while. So believe it or not, we're getting on board on this stuff. I know we're a little late, but I guess better late than never. So thanks, you guys. Thanks, Donna, for doing this. And we'll look forward to hearing and seeing you guys this spring.